One was the question of Thomas, who continues to deny the allegations made against him by Anita Hill. The other was the open warfare which broke out between Republicans and Democrats in the Judiciary Committee. Andrea Mitchell joins us this evening from the Capitol. Andrea.
Garrick, the gloves are off. Clarence Thomas and his supporters are now waging an all-out war against Anita Hill and the Judiciary Committee. First, Thomas raised the stakes, counteracting the charge against him of sexism by accusing the committee of racism.
In this country, when it comes to sexual conduct, we still have underlying racial attitudes about black men and their views of sex. And once you pin that on me, I can't get it off. Language about the sexual prowess of black men, language about the sex organs of black men and the sizes, etc. That kind of language has been used about black men as long as I've been on the face of this earth. And these are charges that play into racist, bigoted stereotypes. And these are the kind of charges that are impossible to wash off. This is high-tech lynching. I cannot shake off these accusations because they play to the worst stereotypes we have about black men in this country. I wasn't harmed by the Klan. I wasn't harmed by the Knights of Camellia. I wasn't harmed by the Aryan race. I wasn't harmed by a racist group. I was harmed by this process.
Thomas described himself as the victim.
Senator, I would have preferred an assassin's bullet to this kind of living hell that they have put me and my family through.
Then he set his own rules as to what he would answer.
Did you ever have a discussion of pornographic films with Professor Hill?
Absolutely not.
Ever had with any other women?
Senator, I will not get into any discussions that I might have about my personal life or my sex life with any person outside of the workplace.
I'm not asking.
I will categorically say I have not had any such discussions with Professor Hill.
The other part of today's strategy was to destroy Anita Hill's credibility. Republican Orrin Hatch read a section from The Exorcist, suggesting that it and a court decision, not Thomas, had been the sources of some of Hill's most graphic comments.
Did you ever say that?
No.
Absolutely not. Think of saying something like that?
Then another Republican, Arlen Specter, said Hill had lied to the committee yesterday when she denied discussing whether her charges could lead to his withdrawing his nomination.
It is my legal judgment, having had some experience in perjury prosecutions, that the testimony of Professor Hill in the morning was flat-out perjury.
It escalated quickly. Anita Hill was clearly going to be put on trial.
I'm waiting for 105 days of surveillance of Ms. Hill. And then we'll see, who ate the cabbage. As we say out in the Wild West, this is an impossible thing. And now I really am getting stuff over the transom about Professor Hill. I've got letters hanging out in my pocket. I've got faxes. I've got statements from her former law professors, statements from people that know her, statements from Tulsa, Oklahoma, saying, watch out for this woman. But nobody's got the guts to say that because it gets all tangled up in this sexual harassment crap.
Stung by Thomas's charge of racism, Democrats questioned him cautiously. A few tried to defend Hill.
An incredibly credible woman who thus far no one has impugned her character or her integrity, sat before us and, at a minimum, impressed this committee on both sides. How can we help us figure out, if we can, why this very credible woman might, as you're asserting, be telling a lie?
Thomas said today he had stopped at Hill's apartment a few times, occasionally when her roommate was there. The roommate, Sonia Jarvis, told NBC News that wasn't true.
Since I know for a fact that Judge Thomas did not come to our home other than that single occasion. I have given an affidavit to the committee, and I will be happy to answer any questions they have about that one occasion.
Jarvis also said Hill had never mentioned sexual harassment to her, even though they lived together when it was allegedly taking place. By the end of an emotional day, Thomas said he has died 1,000 deaths since being nominated to the High Court.
This person, if asked by George Bush today, would he want to be nominated, would refuse flatly and would advise any friend of his to refuse. It's just not worth it.
But he said he would stay and fight it out.
I'd rather die than withdraw. If they're going to kill me, they're going to kill me.
Thomas also tried to discredit a second woman who said that he had been guilty of annoying, not sexual behavior. He said that he had fired her after slurs against homosexuals. All in all, a very ugly day, but one in which Thomas seemed to regain some advantage. Garrett?
Andrea, as you report, those who are following the hearings today understand that the emotion, the drama is genuine there. But let's try to put it in certain context, if you will. Why did Thomas bring up this question of race now at this particular point? After all, his accuser, Professor Hill, is also black.
It was his most effective weapon against a committee that has been stung by charges of sexism. Here he's on the defensive against charges of sexism. Here he could put the committee on the defensive and say that he is being lynched, and the language was highly symbolic, very, very real, very emotional. It was a way of telling these senators that they are on trial, and a charge of racism is one that is very, very tough to defend against. It obviously raised the political stakes. It made it much more personal. It's going to give them a lot more trouble with their constituents back home, and I think it made them back off and soften their questioning of him.
Stand by, Andrea, there at the Capitol. Let's go to the White House where John Cochran is standing by. John, you've been following today's events, as has the personnel, the staff at the White House, probably the President, too. What's the reaction there?
Well, the reaction there is a public reaction issued by the President's Press Secretary, Marlin Fitzwater, late this afternoon. Fitzwater saying that Judge Thomas had replied with eloquence and honesty, and most importantly in that statement, that the White House expects he will be confirmed. What you're seeing now is a positive spin on everything, trying to get a bandwagon feeling here that this is going to go Judge Thomas's way after all. The problem was, late yesterday afternoon, the White House heard some of us on television saying the mood here was gloomy. So the word went out from the President's legal counsel, Boyd and Gray, and from John Sununu, the White House Chief of Staff, to paint a rosier picture. And that's what Marlin Fitzwater, the President's Press Secretary, has done. And I would have to tell you that, in fact, they really do believe Judge Thomas has done himself a lot of good, and so have the Republicans on the committee. They feel here that the Democrats did a very poor job of going after Judge Thomas, that their questioning was soft. So there is something of an upbeat mood here. However, Garrett, yes, go ahead.
John, before anybody gets ahead of any bandwagon, there are more witnesses, more testimony to be heard. How is the White House reacting to the strategy, the tactics, the race issue which Thomas and his supporters have introduced?
Identify themselves totally with Judge Thomas's strategy. They feel he was totally justified in bringing in these charges of racism, that he had been dealt charges of sexism himself. Now, having said that, I say the White House totally identifies itself. The White House speaks monolithically only in public. Privately, I did talk to a senior official here who said he was disturbed by the fact that racism had brought in. He said, you know, even if we win this thing, how much is the victory going to be worth?
All right, John, this leads us to the next question. Let's bring Andrea back in at the Capitol. A question of credibility about Hill and Thomas, and yet there's the credibility of the Senate, there's the credibility of the White House. Everybody is involved, the credibility of government. Andrea, don't the senators there at that hearing this afternoon, didn't they really send a signal that they are deeply worried about their credibility?
They sure are. First of all, they are acknowledging that they cannot, at this point, make a decision between the credibility of Judge Thomas and Professor Hill. So they've got a problem. They're going to have to make a gut decision or a political decision, a judgment call, because it's quite clear that unless these other witnesses somehow clarify the situation, they are not going to have a clear-cut case in front of them. They're also very concerned about their own credibility, and they have only themselves to blame for that, I think, because the squabbling that has erupted on this committee, the nastiness that has erupted with rules being argued about and all sorts of screaming and yelling has not done them any good.
And John Cochran, the White House must also be concerned about this, as you indicated earlier, losing credibility.
Well, that credibility is a problem. They also don't really believe Senator Joe Biden when he said late today to Judge Thomas, the presumption is on your side until all the facts are in. The feeling here at the White House is that a tie goes against Judge Thomas, that the presumption is actually against him, at least among those wavering Democrats. So they are concerned here. They think Judge Thomas had a very good day today, but they think this thing is far from over, Garrick.
Indeed it is, John. And Andrea, thanks for being with us. And once again, the hearings will continue tomorrow, Sunday. Quite unusual for Congress meeting on Sunday. Of course, we'll be covering that as events warrant here on NBC. We'll be back with more news on these developments of this day in just one moment.
Ford Motor Company profiles in quality, reliability.
The quality of today's Fords, Lincolns, and Mercurys is no accident. It's engineered into every car and truck we build. We bump before you bump. We open and close. We brake, we shake, we get in and get out. We freeze, we start. When your goal is to build the highest quality cars and trucks in the world, you don't do it any other way.
At Ford, Mercury, and Lincoln, quality is job one.
When you get gas pain, you've got a choice. Your antacid or Gas X, the tablet made for gas pain. It's extra strength, 100% simethicone to get rid of gas faster than your antacid. Fight gas right with Gas X.
During a performance, I really put my no-nonsense pantyhose to the test. Changing costumes, running around backstage, dodging props. I'm always amazed that they survive all that without a run.
No nonsense. The pantyhose that lasts.
Well, today in Washington, there were the participants, and then there were the spectators, those in the Senate hearing room, and then, or Clarence Thomas and the senators and the others there, and then there were those watching from outside the room, indeed, listening across this land. And our correspondent, Henry Champ, is in Washington tonight to give us that view of what happened this day. Henry?
Good evening, Garrick. The Thomas hearing, the issues of racism, sexual harassment, the Senate's role in all of this, these are the #1 topics in the country today from Washington and coast to coast.
Because Judge Thomas was testifying today, it was his supporters out in force. Former co-workers and employees sought out the media.
He has built a life of integrity. He is known for that. And to destroy him on this charge is the most asinine thing I've ever heard.
Those lucky enough to get into the hearing room wait hours. The remainder are left in the line to argue.
He has not admitted to any of it. It's misperceptions, perhaps. She may be telling the truth, but it's a perception of what really happened. She's telling the truth.
In Oklahoma, it was Sooners football and the hearing sharing TV screens in bars. And many viewers couldn't decide who was right or wrong.
It was my opinion earlier that he was lying, and now I'm not so sure.
But for many, many Americans, the bigger issue was the Senate itself. At a Florida football game.
Well, I thought it exploited our whole judicial system, and they made a mockery of our judicial system by televising it to the whole nation.
A situation where the Hill has nothing to do with his capabilities of performing the job as a judge.
That anti-Senate view was also heard in San Antonio, Texas.
I'm ready to exercise and watch as our government proceeds to make a fool of itself.
And at the Yale Law School.
I think the committee is under a cloud. I think the Senate is under a cloud.
And repeated again in Cincinnati.
I think whoever leaked the information from the Senate committee should have his job really on the line, and he should be fired, because I don't think this thing should ever have gone this far, and I think it's a real disgrace.
Americans appeared this Saturday very divided over who's right or wrong, Judge Thomas or Anita Hill. On the Senate's role, however, they seem less divided. Garrick?
Henry Champ in Washington, thank you. And next we talk to two senators at the center stage of today's drama.
It's 6 o'clock, you're coming home for supper tonight. You worked all day, you worked up an appetite.
Hey, Mom, what's for dinner?
I wonder what minute is cooking up for dinner tonight.
How about stir-fried chicken and broccoli in a tangy oriental sauce with minute rice? Because minute rice makes all your recipes taste great. Now that's something to come home to.
Just look for a minute, it's cooking up for dinner tonight.
Once again, Buick is raising the banner for quality in America. Introducing the 1992 LeSabre with a higher level of power, safety, security, and convenience. This new LeSabre is going to be one tough act to follow. LeSabre for 1992 from Buick.
as we continue our coverage of today's events in the Senate hearing room about Clarence Thomas. We have to remember there are 2 or 3 things are being judged there. First is the veracity of Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas. Also is the credibility, as we've mentioned many times so far, of the institution called the U.S. Senate. The process, as we heard again and again today. We want to get some firsthand personal reactions from 2 gentlemen involved in that process. On the left, Senator Arlen Specter, Republican of Pennsylvania. On the right, Senator Patrick Leahy, Democrat of Vermont. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us. We know what you have been going through, as has the witness, as has the nation today. Senator Specter, first of all, do you think that this credibility, the way people are looking at what you are doing, is being seriously damaged by these hearings?
I think that it's very unfortunate that the statements were leaked and ignited this entire controversy. But there are leaks from time to time, leaks on the Pentagon Papers, leaks in Iran-Contra, and it's something we have to deal with. But we have to move beyond the question of the leak, take care of that later, and right now get into the issue as to whether Judge Thomas ought to move to the Supreme Court.
Yes, but let me follow up, Senator, because a moment ago we heard a viewer across this land who was listening to this and said it was interesting to watch the government make a fool of itself. How do you respond to that kind of gut reaction?
Well, I think that the gut reaction is correct in condemning the Senate or the senator or the Senate staffer who released the report. It's a crime. It is wrong.
Senator Leahy, what's your comment, your reaction to this? Because obviously you've been moved by it.
I have been, and I think that whoever did leak is going to be found out within a matter of days, and they'll be either prosecuted, fired, or whatever they do. But the more important issue, these facts are out there. We have 2 highly educated people who understand what an oath is, who have testified under oath diametrically opposite, and we're suddenly told by the rest of the Senate, find out which one is telling the truth. It is a terrible, terrible situation that this has happened. One of the most difficult things, though, for all of us, none of whom want to be there, are the ones who have to try to sort out just exactly what has happened.
Well, Senator Leahy, a question to both of you. Something changed in the tone today. It became much more partisan. Do you, as a Democrat, blame the Republicans because Thomas brought in the race issue? Other allegations were made, including one by the senator next to you.
Well, I think that the race issue is an unfortunate one. There's people aren't voting for or against Judge Thomas based on his race.
And Senator Specter, you said today, or you charged Ms. Hill with perjury because of her testimony yesterday. Do you still stand by that statement?
Absolutely. The fact is that on a very important matter yesterday, Professor Hill tested flatly that no Senate staffer told her that if she came forward, there was a possibility of pressuring Judge Thomas into withdrawing. And she later changed that in the same day, really recanting in effect, but the testimony that she gave in the morning, and it was over again. I asked her many, many questions, and she consulted with her attorney at one point, and that is a tough thing to say, but we have to decide the question of credibility here. And that was only one factor, along with many other issues of credibility, such as her ability to stay on at the Department of Education, which she said she couldn't as a reason for following Judge Thomas to EEOC.
Well, Senator, I know people have been following this testimony and all of these facts, but bottom line right now, if the vote were to be held now, which way would the vote in the Senate go on Clarence Thomas?
Well, Garrett, you can't say because we're not finished, and you talk about it on a daily basis. It's not a sporting event. It's not a matter of momentum, and you can't keep quarters or innings. We've got to hear all the testimony.
And keep in mind, irrespective of what happens here, you still go to the basic question of competence to serve on the Supreme Court. That issue is still going to be there. A lot of people think that based on who's telling the truth or not, that's going to determine this vote. That is going to be one factor. But there will still be a vote Tuesday night on the Senate floor, and it'll be based on a whole lot of factors, not the least of which was what's happened here this week.
Well, on competency, Judge Thomas had it won last week. Now, the issue now, I hate to disagree with my colleague Senator Leahy, but the issue now is a much narrower one, and that is whether Judge Thomas did the things that the Professor Hill has said.
Senator Leahy, some people have been saying the Democrats went relatively easy and light on the judge today because you're concerned about being seen to gang up on him. Any truth in this? Is there a sensitivity issue?
No, in fact, I was one of the ones designated to question. I had exactly the same tone for him as I did for Anita Hill. I tried to ask specific, short questions and not make speeches. Some of the others on the other side made long speeches. I'm not referring to Senator Specter there, but some use their time to make political speeches. I think the country and the Senate's better served if we forget the political speeches and just try to find out the facts, and that's exactly what I was trying to do.
Senators, I think all of us would agree on that. It's been a very difficult time for you, most of all for the principals involved, and of course we'll be following events tomorrow as these hearings continue, and we'll be back with more news here in just one moment as we continue.
To survive in today's world, you have to follow certain basics. You have to work, and you have to eat. And both play havoc with your stomach. That's why I take Malox. Malox is the strongest antacid there is. It works fast to stop the burning and churning in no time. And who knows more about stomach problems than Malox? You know, it's a funny thing. I started taking Malox because the doctor told me it was strongest. I keep on taking it because my stomach tells me it's fast.
Sales reports are in, and guess what? Ford is the leader in total truck sales for the 6th straight year. And Ford full-size pickups are number one 14 years in a row. We also make the best-built American trucks. You understand that? You understand why we stay number one.
More people are driving the best-built, best-selling American truck than ever before.
Mary Brody won't feel the tiny lump in her breast for another 2 years. But she'll discover it tomorrow after her first mammogram, thanks in part to a new X-ray film created by DuPont that makes it safer to start mammography early. And for Mary, early detection means a 2-year head start on the rest of her life. At DuPont, we make the things that make a difference.
Joanna.
Charles.
Theirs was a love affair, a love of butter, stopped short by cholesterol.
I've dreamt of giving you this.
I can't believe it's not butter.
I can't believe it's not butter is still the only spread flavored with real sweet cream buttermilk for a fresh butter taste, but without the cholesterol to spoil the romance.
I never thought I'd be swept off my feet again.
I can't believe it's not butter, the taste you love without the cholesterol.
There is other news today here and abroad. First of all, we turn to the Middle East. In Amman, King Hussein of Jordan told a conference of 2,500 officials today they have to back peace talks with Israel if their country is to survive. He said Jordan is practically under siege these days. But in Tunis, the PLO chairman Yasser Arafat said he is still waiting for assurances from Washington on the planned peace conference. Clarification, he said, on the question of Jewish settlements in Jerusalem and who will represent the Palestinians. All of this is happening. The Secretary of State Baker leaves for the Middle East tonight, trying once again to get the peace conference between Israel and its Arab neighbors finally underway. This is going to be Baker's 8th trip to that part of the world since the end of the Gulf War. Turning to this country, a birth to note. In Aberdeen, South Dakota today, 42-year-old Arlette Schweitzer became a proud mother and a proud grandmother. She was the first American woman to serve as a surrogate mother for her daughter, and this morning she gave birth to twins, a girl and a boy. Doctors say her children, who are also her grandchildren, are doing well this evening. And also some sad news, a loss to report. Comedian Red Fox, Fred Sanford of the long-running television series Sanford and Son, has died. Fox was rehearsing for his new TV series The Royal Family in Los Angeles last night when he suffered a heart attack. He was taken to a nearby hospital where he died. He was 68.
I want to ask you about something.
Okay. Okay.
I'm crazy about you.
Well, I'm crazy about you, too. That's it? What? What? Come on, what?
It's 6 o'clock, you're coming home for supper tonight. You work all day, you work up an appetite.
Hey, Mom, what's for dinner?
I wonder what Minnie is cooking up for dinner tonight.
How about stir-fried chicken and broccoli in a tangy oriental sauce with minute rice? Because minute rice makes all your recipes taste great. Now that's something to come home to.
Just look for Minnie is cooking up for dinner tonight.
Ready? 122.
It was so hot, even planes couldn't fly. But out at the proving grounds, Oldsmobile was making it even hotter for this engine, putting it through every city driver's worst nightmare. Testing like this has made the 3800 in this Olds 98 one of the most trouble-free V6s sold in America. With 99 models redesigned and engineered, GM is putting quality on the road.
Like to try Total?
Real men eat Post-Raisin Bran.
Hope you're hungry. Takes almost 3 bowls of Post-Raisin Bran to get the nutrition in 1 bowl of Total.
3 bowls? That's not manly. That's nuts.
Well, 1 bowl of Total has 100% of 12 vitamins and minerals.
Smart men eat Total.
And finally this evening, the pain of what we've been witnessing these days, listening to Clarence Thomas and to Anita Hill. We all have impressions and opinions, and I'd like to share some of mine with you for a moment. Most important, as we have seen again today, there is no singular truth here, none at all. Is what is happening in that hearing room about sexual harassment? Yes, it is. Is it about partisan politics? Yes, it is. Someone opposed to Thomas did leak that affidavit, after all. Is it about justice? Well, not really, in the sense of what you would expect to get in a court of law. A judge would not allow much of what we have been seeing these days. And there are also other truths there. Is this spectacle going to further weaken public confidence in government? The process? Yes. Is it going to make it harder to get people to enter public life in government, to face this glare of scrutiny? Yes. Can something good come out of this? Perhaps. There is at least a heightened awareness of sexual harassment, and that is important. And there is a painful lesson of what can happen to people, 2 of them, when thrust into the public forum like a couple of gladiators. There is, of course, every reason for the senators to investigate the charges brought by Anita Hill, but they could have done it earlier, and initially they could have done it behind closed doors. There is no overriding reason why it had to come to this. And our coverage of this will continue tomorrow morning on Sunday Today and Meet the Press. Join us then. I'm Garrett Utley. Good night.